Welcome, everyone. This is 111 Ways to Heal, and today I have a special guest, and I'm so excited about today's episode. Every time I have a call with Ricardo, I have the best time. I learn so much, and I feel like I'm just in this place of receiving this beautiful energy, and I don't know. I hope you know what I mean by the end of this episode. Ricardo, do you want to say a few words about who you are?
I I'm overwhelmed with responsibility right now. So I am Rick from Path of Inner Peace. It's my Instagram channel, and I used to have a podcast with a previous guest of yours, Rob, called Path of Inner Peace. And what I do generally is I do custom guided meditations, I do dream interpretation, mediumship connection, and I also teach English to people who want to learn English. I teach Portuguese to people who want to learn Portuguese. I create a spiritual fantasy graphic novel called The Trident Tales. You can also find that on Instagram. And everything I do, from when I wake up in the morning and I go to sleep at night, everything I do is imbued with the wish to uplift and support people around me in the intersectional communities that I'm a part of or not, but my experiences cross with. So um, this is me, I guess,
That's
contributing
beautiful.
to a world where we are free to be ourselves and love each other.
Yeah. I would love to be part of this world. And I feel like we are, like, because we create our own sort of
Exactly.
reality. We are all part of it now. Well, this was a great transition to introduction of like how we met.
Yeah.
And I have a quick snippet to really share with you as well as a memory and with everyone else um, how empowering and beautiful you are as a human and why we kept in touch, after the interview as well. I also met Eric, similar to previous person that I've interviewed, Rob. I met Ricardo when I was interviewing him for a very ambiguous project of mine. It was a book, interviewing people about meditation, and Ricardo was also one of the first people to do this with me. This is like 50 seconds of just how the interview started. Obviously, there was something before I started recording, but just listen to this.
One of the first things, like, again, I'm super intuitive, so if anything I say is invasive, know that I'm not coming from a place of prying or telling you what to do or something.
Mm,
But don't judge yourself down, okay? You're doing what you need to do at the pace that needs to be done. So maybe there was a little bit of a step back because the recording didn't go through last time, and maybe it's a good exercise for memory enhancement and all that. But you're more than enough. What you're doing is not only enough, it's a treasure for people who will receive it. So enjoy yourself as you do it. Don't feel like, oh, I need to like reach this goal for today. You've already reached it. And now you just need to enjoy the journey that you set yourself to.
just listen to yourself being so supportive from the first few seconds of meeting me. You were like, no, you're doing amazing. And that just made it so easy to get to know you. Thank you.
And and it's like the interview for the book, it eventually led you to starting this podcast, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
And whew, it's almost like what the little chat we had before we started recording today, where I reminded you that whether the seeds we plant, they're budding or if they're full grown trees, we're always gardening, right? And I use this analogy or this metaphor because I come from the path of Reiki and Karuna, where there's a period in those processes of learning and doing energy work where you're like weeding your garden. It's a symbolic thing, but it's an actual meditation that we go through, a process that we go through. And I've loved taking this outlook on life that we don't build things, we cultivate them because buildings can be torn down. If you care for yourself, your life, your relationships like a garden, things are always growing, and some things might need to be trimmed or cleaned up or something like that. But it's an organic thing, and to see how much you've grown as a human being, how much your work and your dedication to this project has become like a life's project, a life's passion, and it's so uplifting to other people, and because it opens the spectrum of all the options and everything that people can access and do for themselves. Just in awe. I'm so grateful to be like a very tiny part of that path.
Thank you. And you have been, genuinely have been part of this path for me, which honestly, when I was studying the book, I did not see myself on being on this path and on this path of just embodying myself, like starting to look for that. And a lot of moments where I was, I think, just on that edge and I felt like I needed a quick push, I somehow ended up always on the call with you. And that was beautiful because I knew that you are just a wonderful intuitive guide who can really tap into that and really provide with just that reassurance or provide with that knowledge that I needed at that moment,
Mm-hmm.
which has, like, honestly helped me so much on the way. So genuinely, like, thank you for being part of my journey to this day, and I hope continuing as well.
Well, there was something that while we were connecting with Rob and all, uh, like we started calling you our younger sister, Ani, right? And and one of the things that has really it's not pride. What I'm talking about is not pride. It's like I'm on the side cheering you on. When I see you doing your more sensual dancing, when I see you going to a park, when I see you sharing these moments of your life, and when we've had calls and you were just like outside at the terrace and looking out the city or something, all of these things, whether you were happy, sad, angry, or whatever, you've embraced yourself in all of those lights and all of those colors. And I think it's so wholesome, and it's such a treasure, like I've said years ago, that you get to become this person and embrace who you are, not giving into shame, but actually facing these things that could be subject to shaming, and you take them in and you own them. And that sovereignty gives you all of this personal power to have all the clarity you need to take the next step, even if you don't know where the staircase or the road is leading you to, because what you need is right here, right now. And I so admire you for
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And again, we can have a whole podcast around just backwards and forwards of like, oh, we are so amazing. Because
that.
I love those sort of conversations. It's my favorite. But I also just wanted to say, and leading up to the first quick bit of the interview from
Mm-hmm.
3.5 years ago, is you were the first intuitive person that I've had a conversation with,
Mm-hmm.
not listened on the podcast, because we did connect through a podcast that we really
Mm-hmm.
kind of were really involved in
Yeah, yeah,
as a
yeah.
community. Yeah, but that was quite spiritual. That was quite mystic in ways,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved it, and I still love that sort of stuff.
Me
But
too.
as a human being, as just a connecting, you were the first person who really validated some of the things that I felt or maybe experienced, but never really even acknowledged properly. And here, and like having a conversation about this in the open was really healing for me and really opened the gates to just embrace it more and not be quiet about it.
Yeah.
And so, even though some people who know me might listen to this, you'll gradually be discovering more and more mystic things about like what I've been experiencing, because it's not
Mm-hmm.
something you share on Instagram like
Yeah.
on the regular day. But I do want to explore those topics, and I think this first snippet from the interview will do just that, because I love your story. This is where you're sharing your story a little bit with meditation
Okay.
specifically,
Also, I
just
got a little
technical
emotional with
things.
the first snippet, um,
Oh,
because it was. such a different space and place for me geographically, even, right? I was in Japan,
Yeah.
and I the experience of being in Japan and being a Portuguese person teaching English in Japan and learning and doing illustration in Japan was like fulfillment and also a completely foreign experience to me at the same time. And all of these
Mm,
paradoxes of like, I found myself or I recreated myself. I love myself in
yeah.
Japan. I love Japan, not blindly, but I love Japan for everything I got to experience and become there. And I also love Japan for everything it is without me, right?
Mm.
And it was such a throwback to a very special moment in my life. And so I'm very grateful you got to share that with me. Did you find
Yeah,
the
I'm
second
so
snippet?
great.
Yeah, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you, yeah. I thought this would bring you back, especially knowing how much you love Japan. So hopefully
Yeah.
this will continue doing that.
The thing that I didn't mention before was that when I was in nursery, I had those like telepathic conversations. And when I moved up to the kindergarten, every night I would review my day. I would rewind and review my day, which is actually a meditation technique to induce out of body experiences or at least lucid dreaming. And I didn't know that back then. But there was a night when I was like, well, I can remember every night since I started doing this regression kind of thing. How far can I go? And I was about 5 years old then. My parents were separated and they were getting divorced. And I didn't know that I was instinctively resorting to meditation to replace my father telling me bedtime stories and stimulating my
Wow.
imagination into sleep. So I was doing this regression to not only self soothe, and this is not that conscious because I was 5, right? It was not intentional, like, oh, I'm going to do this to attain that goal. I was just doing something that was fun, but I knew I could do it well back then. And so I went further back and back and back, and then I just saw black, and I was like, "What's this?" And then because I was not born, I was brought back to life because I was born in apparent death. So there was
Wow.
no patting me on the back. I had like 3 laps of the umbilical cord around my neck. The doctor saved my life and my mother's life because we were both dying. So it's more like I was brought back into life when I was born. It was a miracle. And then there was this little jump, and I saw like masters and guides telling me about my next life, that I would experience some suffering, which I absolutely recognize now, but that it was necessary not only to atone for something, but to guide me into where I wanted to go.
Wow.
And so that was what shut me down afterwards. Like all of my telepathy, all of my clairaudience, all of that. Like that was such an intense experience of like the regression, and then realizing that I probably didn't do many good things in the previous life. And I was like, no, I know I'm a good boy. I want to live a good life, and I know that I want to carry the goodness in my heart in this life and share it and multiply it and live a life that I'm proud and love living. And so I kind of rejected it, but at the same time, that balance gave me the drive to be the compassionate person I believe I am.
Your story is so interesting, so inspiring. How is it hearing it back? Like
It,
hearing your story.
it I don't memorize stuff, but of course, because it's my own experience, I recognize everything I said. And I was nodding, and sometimes I was like rocking back and forth because I was self soothing through the memories of those things. And it's great to hear that because when when you choose to be coherent and consistent and live in integrity, that doesn't make your decisions easier. It just makes the path clearer for you. So nothing becomes easier except that you know that if you make certain decisions and if you allow yourself to be too self-complacent and if you allow, you know, hedonism or whatever might be your hindrance, your personal trait, take over, you know that you're going to be delaying your well-being, at least delaying it, for me, there's no choice. It's like I've made my decision, I've made my choice. And there's moments when I step back and I'm not like always going forward, but making that choice of like, I am going to be a coherent, consistent person. I want to live with inner peace every day. I want to do my best to live a life I'm honored and proud of. And there's going to be some suffering with it, but I know who I am. And it's in knowing who I am and embracing who I am that I find the energy, that I find that inner peace, that I find that, okay, so my life is turning this way. I've got these situations to deal with. I'm going to be myself. And that
Mm.
makes me feel solid in the sense that I can navigate things knowing that a storm might come, but I don't lose myself.
And that's so interesting about how, you know, how as children we seem to do things that we just somehow just do, you know, and what you were
Yeah.
doing with those regressions, you were just doing them,
Hmm.
right? Until it scared you and you just kind of
Because
just zoned it for
when
a bit.
I at that moment, sorry for cutting you off, but at that moment when I was like in the when I was witnessing the reunion, let's call it, with masters and guides, I was not a child. Like the child me was observing, but the me that was being talked to was kind of like an adult. It was my soul, right? And um, so to me, I was like, "Ooh, accountability. This is an issue." Okay, so because as a child, I was told that I was very precocious, so I went through a lot of stuff, but I also understood that through some of my bad decisions as a kid, because kids can be pretty bad, um, I understood. Wait, accountability is important, and so I learned very early on that if you choose to be mean and destructive, this is going to burden you, not only the people you hurt, but you. And so it's a sense that I carried with me to live a life where um, I remember being like going through hell personally, and I was still trying not to cause harm, and I was still doing my best to be more or less of a positive presence in spite of my suffering. I was not always successful because nobody's perfect, and I'm not here like trying to virtue signal or anything. Um, but I think it's very important that in order to know ourselves and to own ourselves and our different facets with that sovereignty, it's important that we have a very clear sense of direction, and that definitely contributed. But as it when it touches on those meditations and regressions from our grown up sort of like Western sense or point of view, we see meditations as moments where we do something that has either a purpose or it's just to be there. As a child, I remember perfectly that this is not a tool. It's not. It's not a means. This is a part of who we are. This is a part of what our nature is, and so we can. It's like walking or swimming, or rolling on the ground. I've always said that we are all intuitives. We're all psychic. We're all mediums. Some people are physically athletic, right? And they go to the Olympics because they train that. That's what they focused on more. But we all have this potential. It's all in us. We, this is part of our bodies. This is part of like our structure that goes beyond just the physical. And more quantum physics and science is confirming all of this, which is awesome to see. But that's the point.
Yeah.
It's the less we see all of these resources that are like spawning throughout the world of meditations and different therapies and resource, like I said okay, already, resources. It's for me, it's very important to take a less functional, as in, how do I say this? Our modern capitalistic world is very sick, so it's difficult to express in words things that are greater than what our westernized perspective labels things as. Because it's not just spiritual. This is holistic. This is about everything at the same time. So sorry that I'm rambling. Um, what I mean to say is that everything in the West is put into boxes. It has a function. So this meditation is helping me take care of my mental health. It's helping me calm my nervous system. No, it's that, but it's more and it's deeper. So when someone chooses to embrace the practice of yoga, for instance, they're not just working on how limber their bodies will become, because yoga is much more than a physical practice, right? So it's kind of like a path, the same way that an Olympic athlete chooses to train to every 4 years go to the Olympics. There's a path. It's not just that event. Every day there's a self discipline. There's a joy in doing the things that build up to the point of the competition. And not everything is easy, but these meditations, regressions, energy work, sound bowls, all of these things are expressions and extensions of who we already are. So instead of separating ourselves and seeing them as objects or tools, I prefer seeing a dream interpretation as a remembrance of who the person is and a reconnection. And you've had dream interpretations by me where we strengthen the bridge between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, in that the subconscious mind is not just like a backup machine going on. That's the unconscious. It's the programmed part that's just functioning like that. The subconscious mind is literally you, the essence of you, rooting for the best outcomes and always inviting you, interviewing you, showing you through dreams in this case that, hey, this is what's going on. What do you want to do with this? And whether you recall, register, and interpret them, that's your choice. Okay,
Mm.
I touched on so many things right now.
Yeah, but you actually did a really good segue into something I really wanted to highlight. It wasn't like part of the questions I was asking, but it was really something that made me so happy when, in the moment when you mentioned it, that it's perfect just to segue into that moment, actually. So
Okay,
let me just start sharing my screen again. And honestly, it's just, I feel like completes your argument around what meditation really is
okay.
quite well.
Here's that I'm going to touch on that button again of like people underestimating children. And just because children are being playful and intuitively exploring things, that doesn't mean that what they're doing is not meditation. I think that there's a stigma around the word and the concept of meditation, that we are doing this intentionally with a function. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, I'm assigning this time to work on cleaning the house. And now I'm going to spend an hour meditating, when cleaning the house is already part of the meditation.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like, so like my perception of what meditation is, formally speaking, is broader than how we perceive it or how we conceptualize it in society today.
Oh, I'm so happy you gave me this answer. Oh my god. Yep, yep.
So is this okay
Oh,
as an
this is
answer?
so good. This is perfect because that's what I want to break as well, the stigma of I'm going to sit in a lotus pose and listen to the meditation music. Like, because I do agree that meditation exists in everyday life. You don't have
Yep.
to make it such a big mission that you don't meditate then at all. Like, I
Yep.
love that answer. Thank you.
I loved your reply there. Yeah.
Let's have more of that. Let's have just
Yeah.
more of recognizing that your existence is literally enough. And if you want to do more to like develop more self awareness or explore yourself more, wonderful. If you don't want to do that, wonderful. Keep living your life just maybe from the open heart if possible so you don't harm others.
Can I respond to that and to something that we were talking about in the clip as well? It has increasingly come to my attention that a lot of us live with like really intense trauma, virtually breaking out of our skin. And a lot of people, me included, I've searched like all my life for ways to not only soothe my pain, but to understand where it comes from and to see what I could turn it into, because it's better for us to transmutate something than to just like break away from it. Because we're not comets. We're not comets. We don't live a trail. We don't leave a trail of things behind that just go forgotten. It's all part of who we were, who we are, and who we're becoming. So what I meant to say is that for people who might listen to this and they might uh, wonder, but what can I do? Like, I have all of this hurt and I know I want to meditate, but this always comes up. Is, you know what I mean? Like, there's hindrances even to enjoy meditation or to enjoy what you think meditation is or to enjoy what you think having fun in life is. And in the process of knowing ourselves and accepting our aspects, what I want to share with you and anybody who might hear is that because now we have all of these options, it's almost like a shock to the system that we've got way too many options and we can't discern what is good for us because it's all there, right? What I want to suggest is that people get more in touch with what do I need for myself right now that I know will benefit me today, tomorrow, and the day after. And so if that is EFT tapping, awesome. If that is practicing yoga, awesome. Is that if that is a combination of the two, psychotherapy, if that is going to the gym, whatever it is that works for you, embrace it, own it gently with compassion, but at the same time fiercely or ferociously, because just like how we learn to protect our inner peace and to protect our boundaries that are healthy, um, it's important to be able to show that we've got a tooth, that we've got a roar, in case someone or something comes and tries to take us off our inner axis of balance and true sovereignty. So
Mm.
there's all of these resources. If you need some help, I might not be like the perfect person to serve you, but I can guide you to finding someone. I can be like a stepping stone in your way, like with the work that I do. You know what I mean? I don't have the presumption of thinking that anybody who comes to do a reading with me is going to stay with me for life. I want to be an oasis of peace, right? And support and uplift. And if people want to come back, they're more than welcome. And I love it because that strengthens our community. But I want people to have the freedom to come by and go on with their journeys and discover new ways and just be freer and freer and happier with who
Mm. Yeah. And it's you always sometimes look, sometimes you need to be on your own and do what is, what is guiding you
they are.
because it's all about that sort of inner guidance. But there are moments where, uh, uh, more often than not, we don't see because we are not on the inside. Like, we are not on the outside, and
Hmm.
it's much easier to see something from the on the outside. Same as seeing something's going on with your friend is more obvious to you than to your friend, and that's why I do see like a lot of power in seeking help, in therapy, in guides, in other services that you do as well, because these are just these are just ways to like access tools that these
Hmm.
peoples have, to continue your journey, without like getting all the degrees in psychology and all the certifications and all other things, because in the end you still can't use it on yourself. You still need a person to on the outside.
One of the things I love about all of this is that at the same time that we are reaffirming and asserting who we are internally and outwardly, what we have as a community, like you and me, we've developed this sense of community between the two of us and a few other people around us, is that others, especially therapists or people who support you on your journey, whichever field you choose to journey on, they're there for your blind spots where your self awareness doesn't yet reach. And so, this is why having a loving family, this is why choosing your friends wisely, choosing the people you surround yourself with, is so fundamental not only for your mental health, for your fulfillment and success in life, but for the overall well-being of who you are and the journey that you want to take on, no matter what hardships come by. you, you these are the people, and these externalities, people around you, these are what will help you protect your sense of sovereignty, where you're the truest, where you are the closest to who you want to be. They're not going to be like flattering you. They're not going to be just patting your back. And sometimes you need to be called in gently, and sometimes you need to be called out because you might be hurting yourself or hurting someone, not maliciously, but something might be happening because we are not all seeing. We are here in these bodies to journey things through this specific, uniquely beautiful perspective of our own being, like who
Yeah.
we are as this identity. But so that's why I love the balance between solitude, time for myself. This is just me. It's just me. No more noise. No more noise. And having loving people around you that you can call your village, your family, to
Mm.
help you with your blind spots.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have two more recordings to share with you. One I really, this one that's coming up actually is very short, but I really
Mm-hmm,
liked, and I really like the way you describe of what made you like stick to meditation. And obviously, we have seasons of doing meditation, not doing meditation. It's comes and goes,
mm-hmm. And it shifts
but
as well.
it shifts. It looks
Mm-hmm,
different, for many reasons, but I think what you are addressing in this short snippet is something fundamental for meditation.
everything around me, from my family to society, everything was denying my existence, denying my validity. Uh, like I'm gay, and society has always been, or not always, but like modern society is very much against that. Um, and it's just an example. I've always been kind of like different. I've always been an outsider to so many aspects of our societal life, and I found that meditation at least allowed me to enjoy my imagination, even if just that, it was okay to be me. So, what made me stick to it in a consistent way, even if I don't meditate every day, was the fact that at least when I meditate, it's okay to be me.
That
Yeah.
that one fundamental place to come back to is yourself in meditation.
And you know that for me, one of the things that I do that is so tightly connected with the uplift that I like to connect with people with, I like connecting people with, is creating a safe space. I'm pretty sure that there's plenty of people that if they see this interview, they're going to make fun of me for saying the things that I say, but that doesn't make them less true, which is there is room for all of us on earth to be happy, to be fulfilled, to be well fed, to be prosperous. There is no need for us to be domineering or to be dominated. There's room, space, and availability for everything that actually makes us feel good and makes it, enables us to live a good life. What what I believe is that in creating safe spaces, we're allowing people to be themselves. And so the more time we spend being our true selves, the less harm we're causing to ourselves and others. So to me, it's like pretty logic that why not? Why not do the simple, small things that enable me and then enable the people around me to, if for that moment, if they don't have that at all in their daily lives, at least while they're with me, they get to be, just like I said before, in that oasis where they can breathe. And it's been a privilege and an honor to me to not to provide, because I don't say that boastfully. I say that when people trust me with their vulnerability through their dreams or just a friendship or something, I know that at least our measure of the world is better. And
Mm.
we're responsible for the good we bring, not just the harm we may cause, but the good as well.
And when was the last time you were just you in that meditation or some space? for you?
Well, last night. Last night. And it's 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 kind of funny to me. It doesn't have to be funny at all, but it's funny to me that when I do these meditations that I'm doing recently, and they're so reminiscent of meditations I did spontaneously as a kid, but because I went through trauma and because you know secular life happens, I lost track of that, and now there's this feedback, internal feedback, when I start these meditations that I actually feel the presence of my childhood self, of my early teen self. I feel the presence and the consciousness that I already had and the yearning that I had for this connectedness that I'm beginning to feel. And this is one of the reasons why currently I love being who I am, in spite of everything difficult that I might be facing in my daily life.
Mm. Wow.
Mhm.
I'm glad that you have had that recently, and you've been. It seems like very intentionally building that into your daily life
Mhm.
to just do that presence.
Yeah. The
Mm.
more it's not because we lack people around us to soothe us or something, but the more we learn to self-soothe and the more we are present and intentional with facing aspects of ourselves that we learn to like shun away or that we've come to be ashamed of. um, it's that thing, it's weight that we let go of that is dragging us back and holding us down, um, or dragging us down and holding us back, whichever, but they both work. And um, if there's things we don't have to forget, and we won't forget because they'll always be a part of us somehow, but we don't have to carry them every day, every time, and every hour of the day, if you know what I mean. So when I say that we're not comets, that we're not just dropping things away, it doesn't mean that they disappear. They're coming with us, but they have their place and they have their value. The pain and the grief and all of those things. I'm an optimistic in the sense that there's hope. There's reason for us to live joyfully, if for no other reason that this physical material experience, as these bodies that our vehicles carry us, it's unique. We will never get today back. We will never get yesterday back. So while we're in this form, let's take good care of it so that any memories or anything that we get to carry when we pass on, it's even more of a treasure than, sadly, the things we might regret.
Mm. Mm. Well, there is no perfect transition to the next one.
Okay.
But it's a last question that I had for. Oh, it wasn't the last question, but it's a last snippet for today
Okay.
that I wanted to show you.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think I'm finding this theme in preparing even for these interviews with people that I've interviewed before, is like
Mm-hmm.
it's not just like what I feel like needs to be included in a podcast or anything. It's like literally what I believe you should hear in the first place, like the person I'm interviewing, because it's just hearing yourself
Mm-hmm.
saying some things like brings up the memory, brings up, things that I don't know, intuitively I just feel like it's beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. Whether you just want to relax, like just having some peace of mind, whether you just want to know what it's like to be here and now, using the breath, because when you use that Ujjayi breath, the fire breath or the dragon breath thing, you cannot avoid becoming very focused in the here and now, in the simple and very soothing sensation or awareness of that sensation of the air moving within your nose. That's like a really good grounding technique that you can use anytime against anxiety or to just like ground you in the here and now. But and to answer that question is whether you need to relax, whether you want to focus on something specific, whether you need to abstract yourself from something else and just allow yourself to be yourself, or to just exist with less and less pressure from the external world or even from the internal world to achieve whatever, to just be. That I recommend that if you have any of these motivations, then just try being with yourself in a soothing, calming way. And that will be meditation.
Yeah. That's
And if
great.
you want to dive deeper into what formal meditation techniques are, allow yourself to gradually approach it. You don't have to go as soon as you start, oh, I've decided to meditate. No, you don't have to go like into like super deep, formal, um, detailed and procedural meditations at the start. I kind of don't like it. I know how to structure a meditation for the benefit of the person. I don't like a meditation that is very formal in itself. I wouldn't change a thing.
I love that. That was your recommendation for any beginner or anyone starting on their journey. And
Yeah,
that's great to hear that you still stand by this.
of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Going a little bit back to like the trauma and recovering from emotional damage, because this is a real thing. Our cognition changes depending on the situations we go through. And if we've experienced trauma, for instance, in my personal experience, but I see even people that I've served, a lot of them, that I can do many kinds of meditations, or I can put myself through many kinds of meditations. But because I've been through tremendous amounts of stress, especially around the time when I got COVID and my life was just like thrown in the air like that, my cognition was focused on me surviving the next hour because I almost died. Um, and and that was very, very stressful to just focus intentionally always on just, am I breathing right? Am I breathing enough? Wait, let me measure it, because I was at the hospital for a while. The thing is that shapes you and the neural pathways. And oh god, I want to. I'm going to pick up my phone to find the name of this neurosurgeon that has actually been studying sleep and dreams. And I think I saw an interview by him in Al Shetty. I think that's the name of the guy who is one of the biggest interviewers there. Um, and for us to recover like a thermostat balance in our mind and in our brains, it's really important to take into account how we are at the moment, right? So not that's why having all of these options of meditations is important, because what works for you now doesn't necessarily work for you a year from now. And for me, that's just beautiful, because like you were saying before, it shifts, and sometimes you meditate more and sometimes you meditate less, or what are we calling meditation even. It's that we are in different stages in our lives, and we can't expect to take an umbrella to cover us from the rain when we want to bathe in the sun at the beach, right? We can't expect to bring a beach towel and some swim gear like flippers and stuff when we are hiking up a mountain, right? So meditation must serve us where we are, when we are, and for what we need at that moment. And I think it's just like me not summarizing, but like adding a little bit to what I said before, whether you're a beginner or
Mm,
not. It's just a reminder that
yeah.
meditation serves us.
Yeah, it has definitely been serving me in many stages of my life. In the even the last 3.5 years, I mean, we would say 4 years of like rapid changes every year,
Mm-hmm.
and that I think that's the energy of the now. At the moment, the world is just
Mm-hmm.
going through rapid changes, and astrologically, like it's also been, it's can be read in energy ways. You can observe your life. You can also look at the astrology and see that. And I think it's just different ways of, Schumann residents will tell you that
Mm-hmm.
as well. Like, so it's like
Yeah, yeah.
different ways of that pick up that there are changes that are happening in the world.
And it's also important to, here's something that we like brushed on before we started recording, which is I am spiritual. Well, I am spiritually inclined, and I'm intuitive, and I do dream interpretations, and I draw pictures. So I'm not much of like a mechanical guy. You know what I mean? But one of the things that might not have transpired is that I have this huge interest in science and astronomy and just like conventional science in general, because I wouldn't have the mind to study it formally like all those experts do, but I do love learning from the fruits of their labor. You know what I mean? That they get to learn about the universe, they get to learn about the brain, they get to learn about all of these things, and lo and behold, I get to confirm the experiences I've had throughout my life. And for instance, as a dream interpreter, with science, like cutting edge science right now, that supports almost, if not everything, that I've been sort of claiming about dream interpretation. Um, so I'm very grateful to have access to information. And so I'm not saying that this is better than that. Right? I'm not saying that, oh, just leave conventional science behind. No, there's so many benefits to it. And I think it's, why should we cut half of a tree off if we benefit from all its shade? Right? Right? It's all part of humanity. It's all part of Earth. It's all part of our collective and individual process. So um, all the things that I see humanity doing for the benefit of humanity, I think they might seem like they're competing in some points, but it's because some of the branches are already more developed than others. And in this case, it's
Mm.
conventional science that is like the budding branch, because intuitive work and yogic work um, reaches far deeper and further back than modern conventional science. But I also believe that modern conventional science is very necessary and beneficial, especially in dealing with modern conventional problems.
Mm, that's a really good take on it because I have absolutely no problems with science, and I probably would have studied something like this if
Hmm.
I wasn't really leaning towards something more creative because I was top of my class in all of the sciencey subjects,
Ooh.
but I never like saw myself doing all of this boring work
Hmm.
because I just felt creative. But what I found interesting is I think that stigma around the division, and it's division in science and spirituality, re- left and left and
Left and right.
right
Yeah.
in politics and stuff. That's an illusion that is like presented to us by people who benefit from that division, right? So
Exactly.
when ChatGPT just came out, like 2 months later, I was already like tapping and chatting with the ChatGPT, and I was
Mm.
asking all of these questions about Age of Aquarius and doing some research for me about like astrology and stuff. And in every paragraph, it would like every answer it would end it with, "Well, this is not a scientific information," and it was literally programmed to give you that answer. Like even though it would like disprove itself that science does not need to prove that love exists, yet it needs to prove that, certain things that happen that are unexplainable are not scientifically proven. So it's interesting that is just something that's literally just embedded in society's thinking that one thing is better than the other to create that.
You touched on something that I need to comment. Please let me comment. Which is that so many of these processes that we watch in that seeming division between science and spirituality, seeming. Um, so many times we find science proving, in a very competitive, masculine way, proving itself. You know what I mean? It's just validating itself. Oh, this is scientific. That's not scientific. As if the measure of what's valid is what's scientific and not scientific. When science is empirical evidence, imperial, experiential. And of course, in a lab, we try to remove the observer from interfering with things as much as possible. But the reality of reality is that we are all interfering. We're all intervening. We all have a reach. We all have an impact. And so, as much as a septic environment as we want to create, that doesn't exist anywhere. Perfect vacuum doesn't exist anywhere. You know, the universe is expanding and contracting. expanding in some areas, contracting in others. There's black holes that are not holes, they're regions of intense density, attracting everything to it. There's stars that are connected with black holes. There's life happening, and with death, more life is coming. And there's entropy, and there's the things that entropy enables. Do you know what entropy is? Okay,
It's just like a system.
entropy is like everything becomes more chaotic, everything becomes less mobile, and all of that. But at the same time, because of that, life exploded in the universe and exploded on Earth and explodes within us at every single millisecond. So it's this, like, just because there's one direction and another direction doesn't mean either of them is wrong. And so
Yeah.
I just love this. It
Yeah.
can be very confusing sometimes, but I just love the fact that just because we're looking this way and science is looking that way, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean we're wrong.
Mm.
It means
Yeah.
that we're both valid. Okay, sorry, my
Yeah.
comment.
I agree. I think we just need to be a little bit more accepting overall. It comes to that, be more accepting of people who deny a whole existence of spirituality, because
Yeah.
that's okay. Still their experience, like we should be accepting of that, and obviously, that's part of that mission of just seeing this beautiful world full of
Mhm.
just embrace and support of each other, just to be ourselves, balance each other out.
Yeah, and help each other out, because you remember those blind spots? We all have them. We all
Yeah,
have them. And the better equipped we are to contribute to someone else's path made lighter, the lighter our own path becomes. And we're not here to weigh each other down. Yeah.
yeah,
We're here to help each other progress and rise above difficulties and feel dignified in their own existence.
beautiful. I think this is a beautiful way to wrap this up.
Yeah.
We are coming to an hour, and
Okay.
I just want to thank you for coming on this podcast and just sharing this beautiful conversation with me. I always love talking to you, and
Mm.
always, as I said in the beginning, I feel like I always learn something from you, something very timely as well. It's just that beautiful timing that you have in my life. It's just always nice to be supported in this way through you, like universe just being beautiful as always. If you've listened till the end, thank you so much for being with us, being part of this conversation as well. Let me know if you have any thoughts, comments about the topics we've been covering. Please share them in the platform you're listening, in the comments section, and DM me if you want to chat more about this. I love talking about this. Please stay with me, listen to more podcasts, and I hope that we can grow this beautiful community. Thank you. And I'll catch you in the next one.
Thank you for having me. Peace be with you always.